Tribe, the channel Robert Kesakos, the usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a beautiful Thursday morning, 9:30 a.m. that I do come to you live from Kampala, Uganda. Once again to discuss the latest from the world of sport, from the world of football in particular. It's always a pleasure to be back here with you guys. Thank you so much for the few of you that managed to catch last night's broadcast as we did a watch along for the second half of those UEFA Champions League games between Barcelona and PSG, and then between Arsenal and Olympiacos. Very, very entertaining games. Of course, not the results that many of us had predicted or hoped to see, but that's the nature of football. That's the nature of football. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. But it's always interesting to watch. I thought there were so many good performances on the night, and Newcastle back to winning ways and things like that. So I thought that there were so many positives to take away from, particularly for Arsenal. There were so many lessons, and things like that, and things like that. So we'll be digesting that and looking forward to what's to come over the weekend. Yeah, and things to come over the weekend. Meanwhile, anyways, okay. Allow me. I was just trying to, update our, talking points or headline for this morning before we get it all off the mark. To our new sort of subscribers, welcome to the community. It's always a pleasure to welcome new members. That's very, very exciting. Man of the match performances for people like Anthony Elanga. Kudos to him. He won a penalty that was taken away by Anthony Gordon. He looked impressive going in the offense. Lamine Yamal, doing some PS stuff in the game against PSG, dribbling. His dribbling skills, past so many players, although some of those moments did not yield much, but he was very, very integral to the goal that they scored through Ferran Torres. So we'll get to talk a little bit about that. Anyways, allow me to have audience tested. Make sure everything does check out before we rush things any further, because I could be here talking and, the voice is not propagating through. Anyways, looks like the audience are good. We are good to go on that front. Injury concerns for the Arsenal, maybe not. We will see. We will see what the implications were on Gabriel Magalhaes, what Mikel Arteta had to say in that respect or in that regard. So yeah. And things like that. So indulge me as we go through this beautiful morning. It won't be very, very long, but we will do our best to go through all the key moments that we thought were worth talking about, pertaining the game from last night. Anyways, without wasting any further ado, like I said, we will start off things with the Arsenal. They managed to win their game, beating up against Olympiacos by 2-0, managing to keep another clean sheet on match day 2 of the UEFA Champions League. That's 2-2. They've been so good defensively. They've been quite solid. You could sort of question the quality of opponents they've come against, but we're talking about, when you're in the UEFA Champions League, there's no team that you can sort of underestimate. You look at teams like Qarabag, who have won 2-2, including the victory away at Benfica, on match day 1 beating them by 3-2, and then on match day 2 beating up against Qarabag by 2-0. So the likes of Kairati Almaty The other day, they were being beaten by 5-1 against Real Madrid. So at least they managed to score. So in other words, some opponents, it is true, are lesser than others. So, for example, if you're playing against Real Madrid, Juventus, Bayern Munich, it's not the same as playing Benfica or Karabag or Copenhagen or any other, a team. So that in itself is sensible, but you cannot underestimate the nature of opponents that they come up against to sort of disqualify their abilities or their stellar performance in keeping a clean sheet. Because we know they are very, very capable of that. They have a very strong defense. In fact, you could see some of their changes during the course of the game were defensive changes. You had Ben White withdrawn for Julian Timber. And then when Gabriel Magalhaes suffered that knock, Mikel Arteta did say that he had suffered a kick in the first half. And then when he got into collision or when he collided with the goalkeeper, David Wire, in the second half, got assessed by the doctors. And they thought they should embrace it. They should, give him a break, bearing in mind that, they have a game over the weekend against West Ham, bearing in mind that the international break is equally around the corner. So they decided to withdraw him for Christian Mosquera, which again speaks to, Arsenal's squad depth in terms of quality. So Christian Mosquera came on and saw out the game, and I thought he really, really did well. When you look at their starting lineup, very, very good side that they fielded. It was David Ryan Gold, Ben White, William Saliba, Gabriel Magalhaes, and Miles Lewis Kelly. Lewis Kelly, I thought, had a very, very good game. Batting into that midfield, sometimes drop the ball as he likes to cling on it. Martin Ødegaard starting in midfield alongside Martin Zubimendi and Mikel Merino. Then you had Gabriel Martinelli, one of the goal scorers, Victor Gyökeres, and Leandro Trossard. I mean, for Arsenal, that was arguably one of the best first half performances they've put up in a match. Not by measure of the scoreline that they had, because it was only 1-0, but by the manner in which they played, the style, the chances they created, how fast they were going forward. Olympiacos were trying to press them so high, so it created spaces behind. They were releasing the ball much quicker to themselves, amongst themselves, more particularly the captain Martin Ødegaard. He didn't take lots of touches on the ball. He was very keen to take fewer touches, sometimes one pass, kind of play. Martin Zubimendi remaining solid in that pivot. And Mikel Merino was Mikel Merino. When you get to play him in midfield, we know he's slow, but he did not do so many things wrong. Of course, he had a couple of blind passes that he played, but all that notwithstanding, he had an okay performance by measure of standards. We are talking about Mikel Arteta fielding the Real Sociedad midfield. Why do I call it the Real Sociedad midfield? We know that Martin Ødegaard had a stint of a long spell with Real Sociedad. Martin Zubimendi has just come from Real Sociedad. We know that Arsenal signed Mikel Merino from Real Sociedad last summer. So in that sort of sense, so it was the Real Sociedad midfield that Mikel Arteta have got to put out there to test what they're capable of. But in some of the changes that he made, it was Mikel Merino that paved the way first to bring on Declan Rice. But all that notwithstanding, in the very, very early stages of the game, they created a brilliant chance, built that ball from the back, passed it quite quickly. Then I do not remember whose cross it was, possibly Leandro Trossard, and it was Martin Ødegaard, Gabriel Martinelli at the receiving end of that cross in front of goal, and he headed that ball just wide. That was a golden opportunity. In my opinion, he should be scoring from there. He should have scored from there, but he did not score. But anyway, we won't dwell on that much. But it is what it is. Then Victor Gyökeres, for me, he had a very, very beautiful performance. He did not score, which you want your striker to do, but that was a good performance. Back-to-back good performances. He had a very decent performance against Newcastle, and yet another one against Olympiacos. For me, it's with the hold-up play, with his physique. He does not get bullied. There's a moment, in fact, leading up to that goal that was scored by Gabriel Martinelli. It was all Victor Gyökeres's work in the 12th minute. He gets past the ball. I think that ball comes in from Martin Ødegaard. He sort of outpowers the defenders and takes a good shot at the goalkeeper, the Olympiacos goalkeeper, who did well enough to save that. His name is Zolakis. Yes, Zolakis. He did well to save that ball, and it was the fall through that Gabriel Martinelli lashed on at the post after it hit the post, and he scored to make it 1-0 for the Arsenal. But they created so many chances. Leandro Trossard could have scored a brace in that game, but they were just not clinical enough. I think that's what cost them on the night, because that game could have ended maybe 4-0 or even more, but they were just not clinical enough. Martin Ødegaard himself had a brilliant opportunity in the second half, particularly, but he had his shot blocked. Victor Gyökeres had another attempt. One was saved by the goalkeeper, while he played the other, wide of the mark, and things like that. So it was a very, very dominant performance from Arsenal. So many good performers on the night. Defensively, I thought William Saliba was their best defender on the night. He did it well. Martin Zubimendi in that midfield, again, cool, calmness, control. He had one moment where they got taken on the break and he sort of fumbled. He had to foul someone to prevent a goal scoring opportunity. He wasn't the last man, so he only got a yellow card, but he did not press a foot wrong. Other than that, Gabriel Magalhaes got himself booked for time wasting. It was, when they put the ball there for a free kick and then suddenly you show you're the one taking it, and then last, you give up and then you want to leave it for the goalkeeper, something that irritated the referee. In terms of the referee of the game, I thought he handled the game really, really well. He didn't give, dish out so many yellow cards. In fact, he only gave out, I think, about 3 yellow cards or 4 yellow cards in about 5, actually, because Declan Rice received, Zubimendi and Gabriel Magalhaes, while Olympiacos on the other side received 2 yellow cards. So Olympiacos also had their moments. David Raya was called to action. I think he made 3 brilliant saves in that game. So Arsenal, on 2 occasions, they did not deal well with crosses that were floated in the area, and I thought that was an indictment on that backline. They should have done better because on one opportunity, David Raya saves. On another opportunity, the ball is headed wide of the mark, and on another given day, we could be telling a different story, because what Olympiacos tried really, really hard to do was, one, to stay in the game, and then to try and find that equalizer. They did well enough to stay in the game. That equalizer just never fell for them, and eventually they ended up conceding a late goal thanks to Bukayo Saka with a pinpoint pass from Gabriel Martinelli. From Martin Ødegaard, the captain. It's another through ball, similar to one that we saw over the weekend that he had played, I think, for, was it Miles Lewis Kelly? Yes, I think it was Miles Lewis Kelly. So it was a sort of a defense splitting kind of pass for Bukayo Saka to run through on the other side. And he really, really did well to convert, putting that ball in between the legs of the goalkeeper, and scored a very, very brilliant goal. So my man of the match performance was no other than the captain. That's Martin Ødegaard, and indeed, even those at the actual game, or UEFA, I did concede that he had the best performance on the night, and he was given that man of the match accolade. For a player that was returning from injury, this was his first start, I think, since the game against Nottingham Forest, recovering from that recurring shoulder injury. I thought he had the pace, he had the precision, he had the eye for his teammates. Forward, especially going forward, I think Arsenal had about 188 passes, forward. That's not something you see very, very often, because we are accustomed to Arsenal knocking the ball around, midfield sideways, back pass, that kind of thing, and then go forward, fail to create something, and pass it back again. That sort of feel, or that sort of sense. And yesterday, it couldn't be any further from that. It was it was almost an intended departure from that kind of thing. Yesterday they were more direct, they were very more progressive, they were really, really quick on passing the ball. I think Mikel Arteta is sort of I don't know if it's a change of tactics based on the opponent or it's something that they want to do going forward. I think the game against West Ham will give us an impression of whether that's going to be the kind of path that they take. I've said this before. If Arsenal want Victor Gyökeres to succeed, they need to be releasing him much quicker. And while speaking in a post-match press interview with, I do not remember, was it TNT or what? He did allude to that, and he said that we now have a striker in Victor Gyökeres. We need to release him much quicker. We need to release the ball quicker. And he said sometimes the game necessitates that you take more touches. Sometimes it requires that you be much quicker, that you release the ball quicker. And yesterday was that one case. He spoke about being pressed really, really high, and that created a bit of space for them to pass the ball in between the lines much quicker, and they did that. So we will see whether Mikel Arteta intends to be more direct in the way they play, to be that quick, to have that precision, and to create loads of chances as they did create last night. So 61 ball possession percent, which was really, really good. That tells you Arsenal's dominancy. When you look at the other statistics in terms of shots on goal, they had as many as 4 shots on target. While Olympiacos also had 4 on target, but they had 6 shots off target, which is what I was saying, that Arsenal were just not clinical on the night, but they had a very, very decent performance. If they had been clinical, could have been, by now, we would be talking about an entirely different result. Leandro Trossard was in the Hi LFC. How are you? Good to have you back. Leandro Trossard, once again starting, did not look his very best, missed 2 golden chances, one in the second half and I think another in the first half. I do not know what is it about Trossard, but every time he starts the game, you hope that he had started off the bench. And every time he comes off the bench, he gives you the kind of performance that makes you wish he had started the game. He's that kind of player, really. But I think we should get used to that. Then the other thing is that because Arsenal have a very good squad, you could see that even when they rotated players, it didn't affect them much. My hope was that maybe we got to see Max Dorman and Ethan Nwaneri get in that game, as opposed to coming at the likes of Jurriën Timber and Declan Rice. But it's because Arsenal took very, very long to secure that second goal that Mikel Arteta thought it needed more senior players, one to contend with the pressure that Olympiacos were mounting on them, but also to try and find that second goal, which they eventually found. So, yeah, it is what it is. Then quickly, I thought, those were very, very decent performance. So it was a beautiful game of football on the night, and congratulations to the Arsenal fans out there. Anyways, I think we'll get ready. Okay, before we leave Arsenal, like I was saying, their squad. I mean, you look at the players that they brought on, and I mean, Bukayo Saka coming on. You look at Jurriën Timber coming on, having not started. You look at Declan Rice coming on. You look at Ebeleche Eze coming on. Christian Mosquera. You looked in the stands and Kai Havertz was there. Noni Madueke. You had Gabriel Jesus. You had Gary Hinkap. All were absent through injury, and you couldn't help think to yourself, what a decent squad these guys have. What a decent squad they really, really have in terms of what it can help them do. Change their fortunes in the game if things are not going to plan. But also, it will be very, very interesting. I would love to see an Arsenal without 0 injuries. And I see how Mikel Arteta handles that sort of pressure of fielding the best team, but also making the right substitutions. It's one that I would love to see. Anyways, in the other results, like I said, Copenhagen lost to Karabakh by 2-0. Newcastle beat up against Union St. Glossy, but by 4-0. Nick Voltmada scoring his third goal for Newcastle. Remember the first game against Wolverhampton Wanderers in the Premier League as they won by 1-0, and then the second game over the weekend as he scored against Arsenal in a game that they eventually lost by 2-1. Then a burst of penalties from Anthony Gordon, while Harvey Barnes did score the fourth goal. Very, very important in the build-up play. William Osula providing the assist for that one. Then Monaco shared the spoils with Manchester City in a 2-2 draw. Brought Erling Haaland scored a brace in that one, while Tez and Diatta were the goal scorers for AC Monaco. In Jordan Tez, as well as Crepin Diatta, the Senegalese left back who was played as a left wing back in that game. So beautiful game of football. It finished 2-2. They needed a late penalty. That's Monaco to restore parity, and they shared the spoils with Manchester City. PSV Eindhoven were forced in a draw against. PSV Eindhoven shared the spoils with Bayer Leverkusen in a 1-1 draw, while Napoli beat up against Sporting CP by 2-1. Rasmus Højlund scoring both goals, one a header and another a brilliant through ball for him by Kevin De Bruyne, and he went on to convert that one really, really well. And I was reading a quote. There's a quote apparently by Rasmus Højlund saying, "No wonder but Erling Haaland scores so many goals, because when you have the service of Kevin De Bruyne, it's just upon you to convert those chances that he's going to create for you." So he did provide a burst of assists on the night. Then Nicolas Pepe was the man of the match as Villarreal forced Juventus into a 2-2 draw on the night. Gatti and Francesco Fonseca were the goal scorers for Juventus, while Renato Viega and Mikauteza was the other goal scorer for Villarreal. So it finished 2-2 in that game. Borussia Dortmund beat up against Athletic Bilbao by 4-1. Gerisi, Julian Brandt, Kanari Chukwemeka, and Svensson were the goal scorers in that game, while Gruzeta was the goal scorer for Athletic Bilbao for what turned out to be a mere consolation. And then came the biggest game of the night between Barcelona and PSG. PSG were very, very dominant in that game, managing a 52% ball possession compared to Barcelona's 48. Okay, not overly dominant on the ball, but I mean, because it's only a margin of 2%, it was Barcelona. Barcelona found the back of the net first through Ferran Torres, with Marcus Rashford providing the assist in the 19th minute, while Sene Mayuru, thanks to a brilliant pass by Nuno Mendes. I mean, the whole PSG built that ball from right out of the back into the offensive side of it to convert from. It was beautiful to watch. And Nuno Mendes, the way he went forward was quite electric in certain moments of the game. For me, arguably the best left back that there is in world football at the moment. Nuno Mendes providing the assist as Arsene Mayuru squad to give PSG the equalizer, and then Achraf Hakimi provided the assist as a substitute. Gonçalo Ramos scored in the 90th minute to win it 2-1 for Paris Saint-Germain. Like I said, Lamine Yamal he did win the ball back in the build-up to Barcelona's goal. He had a very, very decent game. But like I keep saying, sometimes good is not good enough. Sometimes you can be good, but good is not good enough to win you the game. You ought to go an extra mile. And that's just what it was yesterday. At some point, it felt like the teams were going to cancel themselves out. Vitinha's blind pass is what culminated into Barcelona's opening goal. So you could see first of all, Luis Enrique, a former Barcelona manager, was given a very, very warm reception back in Barcelona. I think he's a well-respected figure within the Barcelona realms, having guided them to a treble in 2015 when they won the UEFA Champions League, won the La Liga, and the Copa del Rey, and things like that. So yeah, He's in very, very good books with Barcelona. And then remember, PSG without some of their star players in Kivica Kvaratskhelia, Desiree Doué, Ousmane Dembele, and yet they still competed really, really, really well in that game. Again, it also speaks to their squad depth and the kind of quality that they do have, because, like I said, in the absence of Marquinhos, the captain who was absent, he was always going to be Lucas Chevalier and Cole, William Pacho alongside Ilya Zabani, who they signed from AFC Bournemouth, Akraf Hakim and Nuno Mendes, Warren Zaire Emery in the absence of Joao Neves, Vitinha and Fabian Ruiz, then Bradley Bakola, Seni Mayuru, and Ibrahim Mbaya. Mbaye, leading the lines. And then when they turned to the bench, they brought on players like Lucas Hernandez, Goncalo Ramos, Lee Kang-in, Quentin Njatuo, those were some of the players that they brought on in. Barcelona on the other side, for me, they started with an equally good squad. Jules Koundé, Wojciech Szczesny in goal, Jules Koundé, Eric Garcia, Pau Kubasi, Gerard Martin, Frenkie de Jong, Pedri, Lamine Yamal, Dani Olmo, Marcus Rashford, and Ferran Torres. I had hoped that they would start with Robert Lewandowski. He managed to come on for Marcus Rashford. Then Marcus Beno, Andres Christensen in this backline, Alejandro Belalde coming on for Gerard Martin. I mean, you can see that most of and then Marc Casado. You can see that most of their substitutions were quite defensive. For Hansi Flick, I think at that point he thought, because these are substitutions that were made around the 72nd minute and onwards, I think in some form or shape, I think he had resigned himself, given how the game was going. I think he had resigned himself to taking a draw out of that game. But Juventus had other ideas on the night. So yeah, those were the games from the UEFA Champions League. Beautiful games to watch. Meanwhile, today the UEFA Europa League is on. AS Roma at 7:45. We'll have so many games kicking off at 7:45. We'll be up against Lille. Bologna will be up against Freiburg. Brann will be up against Utrecht. Celtic will take on Braga. FCSB will be up against Young Boys. Fenerbahce will take on Nice from France. Ludo Goetz will be up against Real Betis. Panathinaikos take on Go Ahead Eagles from the Dutch Eredivisie. Victoria Pilsen will take on Malamo, while FC Basso at 10 p.m. will be up against VfB Stuttgart. Celta Vigo will take on PAOK. FC Porto will take on Crvena Zvezda, while Feyenoord will be up against Aston Villa. Remember, Aston Villa won their first game by goal to nil against Bologna. Genk will be up against French Varos, while Lyon will be taking on Salzburg. Maccabi Tel Aviv will be up against Dinamo Zagreb, while Nottingham Forest, who shared the spots with Real Betis in a 2-2 draw. The first game will be up against Midtjylland at home. Sturm Graz will take on Rangers. Then the UEFA Conference League will also be up in action tonight. So many fixtures are to come up from that side as well. Sparta Praga against Shamrock Rovers. Slovana Bratislava will be up against Strasbourg. Shelbourne up against Heiken, and so many other games already. I was particularly trying to look for the game between Crystal Palace, because we do expect Crystal Palace to be in action. I'm trying to find that game. Yes, Crystal Palace at 7:45 p.m. will be up against Dynamo Kiev. They will be playing away to Dynamo Kiev. So those are the fixtures that will be coming your way in as far as the UEFA Conference League is concerned. Then do not forget, like I said, the weekend will get underway. Of course, I think we'll start with, I think we have a game on Friday nights. Yes, tomorrow night in the Premier League. So that's why I need to review the schedule so that you keep tabs on that as well. Bournemouth will be up against Fulham on Friday night football. Leeds United will take on Tottenham Hotspurs on Saturday in the early kickoff. Arsenal will be up against West Ham United. Manchester United will be up against Sunderland. While Chelsea will take on Liverpool at 7:30 p.m. That's on Saturday. We only have 4 games to be played on Saturday. Excuse me. And then on Super Sunday, we'll have another set of 5 games, a majority of them kicking off at 10 p.m. Sorry, at 4 p.m. Aston Villa up against Burnley. Everton will take on Crystal Palace. Newcastle will be up against Nottingham Forest, while Brighton and Wolverhampton Wanderers will have a date. And then in the late kickoff, Manchester City will be away to the GTEC Stadium to play Brentford. Anyways, that's it for me. I hope you have a wonderful day. I wish you the rest of a good day, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.